Library for their summer concert series every Tuesday in June at
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Welcome to the program. My name is Paul, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine. Here to talk about some conservative ideas, the senator from District 17, Scott Flippo, is with us. Scott, welcome back, sir.
Paul, thank you very much. I'm happy to be with you all today. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program. I guess, we'd spoken a little bit earlier in the week, and I found our conversation just really intriguing. And we were just kind of talking about big picture conservative stuff, you know what I mean? And big picture limited government stuff. And I just want to say I really appreciate what you had to say, and I'd love for you to share it with our audience,
Well, I appreciate that, Paul. And, I enjoyed the conversation as well. And, it's something that I've spent quite a bit of time, looking at. And naturally, as a legislator and a senator, I focus, primarily on state issues. Now, as a Republican, as a conservative, I also think about, what it means to be a conservative and what are the values and the principles that we're fighting for. Foremost is we're fighting for freedom and liberty. And, that government doesn't necessarily exist to per se make our lives easier. It exists to protect our freedoms and our liberties and make sure those are not being infringed upon. It's our responsibility, to make sure that we're doing for ourselves, that we're helping out our neighbors and our communities. That's not, some distant government's responsibility. That's our responsibility. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that we had talked about, Paul, was, that was kind of interesting that some of the biggest recipients of federal spending were some of the reddest, most conservative states.
Yeah.
New York and California, those are payers. They're the payers. Arkansas is a taker, along with a lot of other states. It's not just Arkansas. And I think that, as I started looking at that, got me thinking, at which point should we not be having a conversation, not just amongst, other elected officials, but amongst our constituents about, the role of government and what should be the responsibility of the federal government, what should be the responsibility of the state government, and what should be the responsibility of local government.
And that's why I thought it was so intriguing, because it really is big picture stuff. Some people might know, I'm sure some do, that Arkansas, when it comes to the amount of our budget, $20+ billion when you take state and federal spending, so much of that is us taking more than we actually send to Washington, D.C. I mean, some people might know that, but they might not know to what extent. And more importantly, they might not have ever thought that, that this is something that we should work to change.
Absolutely. And I think, Paul, one of the tough things is that when you see spending, reach you directly, or your community, or your county, it's kind of, everybody has that thought of, well, it's about time. We've seen all this money getting thrown away and, just wasted in all these other areas. And finally, some of that hard-earned tax money is coming, or that hard-spent tax money coming back to me or to my county or my state. And I understand that thought process. Some of the realities is that sometimes we get more than what we're paying up there. And, one of the great things, or say great things. One of the things that the federal government does is if they can't force a state to do something constitutionally, they open up a checkbook. And they bribe us to do it.
Yeah.
And, the more you take, and the more money you take, the more addicted you become to that money, and the cycle kind of repeats itself. And, a lot of the, for conservatives, when you talk about your freedom and liberty.
Hey, Scott, you're breaking up just a little bit. So, yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Sitting here, let me know when I get to a good spot.
Okay.
I'm going to move. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It was just a little bit there, so we kind of missed something. You said something about conservatives, so I'm sure it was great.
I don't know. I don't think the Russians are hacking into my phone. I hope not.
Yeah, who knows? NSA too, maybe. Who knows?
But no. Getting to the to conservatives and the things that we're fighting for, and you talk about your freedom and your liberty, and some of that's going to come with hard work and sacrifice, and it's not necessarily about making government and making life easier. That's our responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Government can be responsible for our national defense, for infrastructure, for fire protection, for police protection. But what about that community center that we all want to have in our local communities? Is that people in Delaware need to be funding that, or is that something that we need to be funding at the local level with maybe some state assistance? And again, this is a conversation that I think is not being had in politics. It's not being had, really. I think in society at large, and I kind of feel that that's one of the things that I enjoy talking about. And I think that when I visit with my constituents, that it's something that I get feedback on, and that you just can't leave it to government or politicians to think that they're going to solve all the problems. You have to involve citizens. You have to involve your constituents in that.
Yeah, and we're talking with Senator Scott Flippo from District 17. So I'm kind of just thinking here, like you said, so much of this dependency on the federal government. This is affecting a lot of red states, specifically red states in the South. So we have a lot.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Happy Monday to everybody out there listening. Thanks for starting the beginning of your week with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Again, my name is Paul. The phone number, if you want to call us or text us today, let us know what you think, 870-275-9799. Joining us now, we're going to kind of do a rerun of what we did last week. We've got the chairman of the Baxter County Republican Party, Mr. Richard Castor, is back with us. Richard, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Happy Monday to you.
Yes, absolutely. Let's start. I want to get your take on what happened with the Supreme Court and what they did with President Trump's travel ban today, upholding a significant portion of it. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I think it was a little bit of a mixed day out of the Supreme Court. This was one of the days where they dump a bunch of their court cases on us, and we have to kind of read through them. But that was pretty good, what they did. They reinstated most of it. And what was so dangerous about that was that the Constitution gives clear authority to the president to decide in matters of immigration who and how that people can come to our nation. And that's very just common sense constitutional law there. And what these liberal judges out in the Ninth Circuit court out in California were saying was that, well, because of Trump's rhetoric, before he passed or before he signed this executive order, his rhetoric is what makes it unconstitutional, which is a standard that is, of course, has no basis in legalese at all, and is something I think that was very dangerous if the Supreme Court were to hold that up, where if you said something wrong someday, any piece of legislation you passed or any executive order you signed in the future could be held to account to the words that you said before you signed it or passed it. So a very scary precedent that some of these progressive judges were trying to put on our law book. But it was a very good thing that the court unanimously rejected that. And another one, Paul, that came out today that I thought was very interesting, our friends up in Missouri, there was a Lutheran church who applied for a grant to build a playground for their community. And the state of Missouri said to the Lutheran church, no, we're not going to look at you like a normal nonprofit organization. You're a church, so we're not giving you tax dollars. And this little Lutheran church said, no, we're going to sue you because that's discrimination over us being religious. And the Supreme Court decided, a majority of them today, that a state cannot discriminate against a religious group on the basis that they are religious. So that is a wonderful thing. And I think the third one that's worthwhile to note is this one on gun rights out of California. It was just Justice Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch were the only two who dissented, and it was over a sheriff in California who said, you're not allowed to carry your gun outside of your house. And it kind of tells us where Alito and some of these guys on the court who are supposed to be conservative, where they land when the going gets tough. And I think we can thank the Lord that we got Neil Gorsuch in, and hopefully Kennedy will retire soon, and we'll get another good justice in there. And we may have some happy days ahead. Yeah,
there's some reports Anthony Kennedy considering retiring. I know that's, that would be huge. I know that's got liberals. I know that's got Democrats really worried because,
he would never be invited. He wouldn't be invited to another cocktail party in D.C. for the rest of his life if he did that right now. But
because if you're looking at Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she's not going to be on the court in 8 years. I think that's a very safe thing to say.
Correct.
And so potentially Donald Trump with Anthony Kennedy, if the rumors are true and he does retire, you're looking at Donald Trump being able to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices. And really tilt the court to the right.
And if he picks them like Neil Gorsuch, then we're going to have some very good days ahead.
Yeah.
And there's been some court cases decided that haven't made a lot of news, but if you read what Gorsuch has been saying in them, there's been 3 specific ones. He's very much a textualist, very much a constitutionalist, and someone who is interpreting the law as it's meant to be written, and is saying, no, it's not the court's job to reinterpret these laws for Congress. Mm-hmm. It is Congress's job to write the laws. It's our job to figure out if they're constitutional or not. We can't sit here and rewrite all this legislation just because we don't like it or we don't think it works well. And he and Clarence Thomas have consistently been the only two to stand up and say that in this season of the court. And, what a breath of fresh air. I think we were all a little bit afraid that he may not follow through with all the hype about him being so great. But so far, he has not disappointed. So if Trump can pick a few more like him, it will be a very good day for America.
I want to shift gears here. Again, we're talking with Richard Castor. He's the chairman of the Baxter County Republican Party or Committee. And then you have also, he's a radio host. He does a show called The View from Hillsdale on Mountain Talk 97.1, and you can get that online, correct, Richard, if there are other people that want to listen to what you do? Okay.
MountainTalk97.com.
There you go. And they've got a great on-demand selection there. I really encourage you guys to check that out. I want to shift gears to health care. Our whiteboard today for the week says repeal Obamacare now. There have been countless elections, countless politicians in the Republican Party who have won power because of Obamacare being such a disaster. You can go down the list of how many lies that were told to pass it. You have the folks who crafted it saying that the stupidity of the American people, lack of transparency. You're talking about Jonathan Gruber, how what they had to do to get it passed, and no one can afford to pay their health premiums. It's practically this has been a complete disaster. It was a redistribution of wealth scheme. Now we have the Senate trying to do something. We have people saying, look, this is not really a repeal, though. What are your thoughts on this, honestly, Richard Castor?
Well, I think there's two conversations to be had here, and one is what are our principles as American citizens when we talk about health care? What do we see the role of government being in the discussion of health care? And I think you and I could sit down and we could have a whole 3-hour show on, why health care is not a right and how we got to a place in American society where if you're sicker than a healthier person, then the sicker person should pay more. That shouldn't be controversial, right? That should just be common sense. But we've gotten to a place where that statement now, where if you're sicker than somebody else, you pay more, that somehow that is an offensive thing to say. So I think we got to understand, we can talk about our principles, we can talk about what should be, but then we also have to have the discussion of what can we do right now. And I've been listening to Mike Lee and Rand Paul on this, and kind of what they've been saying is that this bill will reduce taxes $1 trillion over the next 10 years, which is great. We love that. But it's not reducing the spending of Obamacare. It's not truly affecting what is making the premiums go up, what's making it so hard for us all to afford our health insurance. And so I think that's a tremendous problem with the bill. And then today, you were texting me about this a few minutes ago, Mitch McConnell, in a last-ditch effort to save the bill, has put a section in it that will allow, and listen to this wording, the federal government will allow insurance companies to penalize people for not being insured for something like, 67 days, something like that.
Yeah.
If you reach that milestone, the insurance company may penalize you. So it's not the federal government doing it, but it's the federal government telling companies what they can and cannot do, which all of history in this great country of ours, and you go back to Woodrow Wilson and FDR and all these progressive presidents, every time the federal government tells a business what it can and cannot do, prices go up. And then to translate that to healthcare, premiums will go up. Your bills will go up.
Yeah.
And so I think this is Mitch McConnell trying to save it, trying to fill that loophole of cutting taxes and not reducing all the costs. But if I'm sitting in the Senate today, I don't think I vote for it. I think you hold out for a better bill to actually repeal this dang thing.
I think you're right, and I'm really glad to hear you say that. This idea of the individual mandate, to me, was one of the key things that it to me is just quite frankly immoral that we're going to say, hey, you have a beating heart in your chest, and so you owe the government money in the form of an insurance policy. That's essentially what they're saying, and I understand. The way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Senate plan removed the individual mandate, but now this is kind of a way to put it back in because the plan doesn't get rid of pre-existing conditions. You know what I'm saying? So if they have to take everybody, even if you have a pre-existing condition, then the prices are going to be high. And so then you're going to have some sort of penalty for not having insurance, because if price is high and you have the freedom to not get insurance, then the whole system's good. So in many ways, the individual mandate is required if you're going to do the whole pre-existing conditions thing. It's really a catch-22 here.
It truly is, and I think the biggest problem we have here is that the Republicans aren't strong enough in the Senate, or at least they're not brave enough to do what needs to be done here. And this is such an opportunity for us as a party to be talking about big, bold ideas like healthcare savings accounts. Those things could truly revolutionize healthcare in America, and they're barely referenced in this bill. There is provisions for them, there are tax credits for them, but they're not emphasized whatsoever. We have a majority in the Senate, but we've got some conservatives saying, no, we're not going to vote for this. And I think it's a good thing because we should be, as Ronald Reagan said, painting with those bold colors. This is such an opportunity for us to really stand up for what we believe in and distinguish ourselves from the Democrats and from the progressives, that we're really letting it slip through our fingers. And, Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, they're saying, well, if we just pass this, then we're going to have the Department of Health and Human Services come in and write some rules that will be very conservative, and that will, in essence, be repealing Obamacare.
Yeah.
But since when do we as conservatives allow the bureaucratic state to start writing rules, start interpreting legislation, more than we want our elected representatives to do that. That, as a party, we should be saying no. Just as what we talked about, Neil Gorsuch, it's not the court's job to interpret these laws, and it's truly not the administrative state's role to interpret these laws. It should be our representatives, these people who we can hold accountable in the next election cycle if they do wrong by us. And so I think our principles are wrong on this bill, and we're letting a tremendous opportunity slip through our fingers where we could really revolutionize our health care in the United States. And instead of, I always tell this story, Paul, about my mom. I was on my family's plan back in the day when this all happened, and we all got kicked off our health insurance plan, and we were told we needed to apply for a new one. And so we called to do the application process. It wasn't one question about, do you smoke, do you drink, how healthy are you, do you have diabetes? It was, how much money do you make every year? What's your household income? And my mom, being the little firecracker that she is, she goes, what in the world does that have to do with my health insurance rate? And the lady on the other side of the phone says, well, ma'am, it doesn't really have to do with your health anymore. It has to do with how much income you have as a household, and that determines what subsidies we can give you.
Yeah.
So it's no longer about how healthy you are. It's about how poor you are and how much wealth they can redistribute to you from the wealthy Americans, and that is a very poisonous place for us to be as a society.
Yeah, what we're watching is just like the progressive income tax, what it does to the incentive structure when you get to a certain income level, your taxes go through the roof or whatever. And we're watching that happen in healthcare. We're going to tie this to how much money you make, and then we're going to determine, hey, we can gouge this guy because he can afford it, and it's about redistribution of wealth. I want to get your comment on one more thing. We're talking with Richard Castor. Richard,
before you move on, Paul,
yeah.
I'm going to interrupt one thing.
Yeah.
We can't let this conversation go by without putting a little bit of blame on Asa Hutchinson, our governor here, and John Kasich in Ohio, who led the movement in the Republican Party to embrace Obamacare in their states and have made it 1,000 times harder in Washington, D.C. for our nationally elected Republicans to fully repeal and replace Obamacare. Asa is up there. Kasich is up there, saying, no, don't do this. We've put so many people on our Medicaid rolls that we will lose elections if you fully repeal Obamacare now, and they need to be held accountable for that. We can't let this conversation go by without saying, Asa Hutchinson, you did wrong in bringing Obamacare to Arkansas and embracing it the way you did, and we as a party should hold him accountable for that.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a choice, to lead us out of a mess that Mike Beebe and Republicans got us into, and he chose not to do that. He chose to continue with the status quo, and now, like you're right, we've now got 330,000 people in this program, and he's claiming he's going to lose elections. Matter of fact, I'm going to pull some audio. That's some good audio I've got of Rick Scott of Florida at a Republican Governors Association a few months back, and Asa Hutchinson. Rick Scott, talks about how this is going to be really hard to do now that Donald Trump's won. It's going to be hard. The empire is going to strike back because basically all of these people who've got addicted, all these corporations, the insurance companies who want the government, guaranteed cash flow. This is going to be a tough road. And then Asa gets up there and says, we've got to get this right, this repeal right, because I'm up for re-election. I mean, those are his exact words. And I've got the audio, and I'll play it when we come back from break. But I really appreciate, Richard, you bringing that up. A last question, real briefly. This has to do with Asa and the Republican leadership in Arkansas. The Municipal League had their conference 2 weeks ago. They passed resolutions urging, so we're talking about county, city officials. They are now urging Asa and the legislature to call a special session to raise our taxes by figuring out some way to, have an internet sales tax, more revenue to the government. Is that a conflict of interest? A little bit.
Of course it is. The Municipal League operates off of people's taxes. Of course they want more. They like to give themselves another pay raise if they could. But I think any chance that these bureaucrats who live and breathe government, any chance they can get to grow the size and scope of any local or statewide government, they're going to take it. And it's no surprise that they would pass these resolutions, begging the legislature to get back in session, But we should, at the same time, as the people of this great state, say, no, every time you guys meet, you raise our taxes. We get deeper in debt, more regulations. It's harder for our businesses to thrive, and it's harder to put food in our families' mouths. Don't meet again until you constitutionally have to. This is a part-time legislature. That's how it's supposed to be, and they need to start doing as they're named. It should be part-time. They don't need to be down there every day, because not every problem requires government to solve it. And we have conservatives, quote-unquote conservatives, in charge of state government. Then let's live that way, and let's tell the people, the government's not there to hold your hand. The government's there to serve you, not make you serve them.
Richard Castor, I really appreciate it. Baxter County Republican Chairman, we appreciate it, sir. Be safe, okay? We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, folks, it's the Paul Harrell Program. We're going to take a break. Back in just a moment. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to triplrpawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's triplrpawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, triplrpawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
Watch Paul live at paulharrell.com. It's free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
All right, 870-275-9799 is the telephone number if you would like to contribute to the conversation today. Special thanks to Richard Castor. He's always a pleasure to have on. And, man, he got to a point there where he was just like, hey, you know what? We're not moving on from this healthcare conversation without mentioning Asa Hutchinson and that this whole thing. And it really goes into what we've been telling you. When it comes to the Senate plan, well, no, we got to back up. When it came to the House plan, Governor Hutchinson came out and said it was a good start, but it can't be the final solution because it takes the Medicaid cost, right, the Medicaid expansion, and it increases the cost of the state by going from the 90-10 match back down to the 70-30. The Senate bill goes from 90-10. The 10% goes from, I guess it goes to 90, then it goes 85, then it goes 75. And even that, from what I'm told, is, I mean, it was completely unaffordable. We've known this for a while. This is going to be unaffordable. But the problem is and this is the rub with this Senate bill, is that they're kicking it down the road. They don't want to do it in 2020. They want to do it in 2021 or 2024 and that sort of thing. And it's like that'll never happen. There will be so many people on this program at that point. So many people. I mean, you've got Arkansas, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. They've got this story that's out there. Dan Holtmeyer. This was in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Thousands in Arkansas face insurance loss under Senate bill. U.S. Medicaid trims would trigger cuts in Arkansas Works program. I mean, you read this, and it reads like it's the end of the world. And I want you to realize something here, because I had somebody tell me this today. What about emergency rooms? Well, okay. According to the emergency room's fuzzy hospital math, they have $150 million in uncompensated care a year in Arkansas. And I just want you to know, folks, we're spending $2 billion in Arkansas in this expanded program. I'd much rather just solve $150 million with $150 million, not $2 billion. It just doesn't make any sense what we've done. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
People who I think are limited government conservatives, but I don't think there's ever been somebody in a position of power or authority to maybe try to articulate, hey, we need to try to change this. And you mentioned sacrifice, and I think that's exactly what this kind of is going to take. Is somebody being able to, this is this we're going to have to do without this. Because this is, with the current level of federal funding, this is a perk, and we may need to get rid of that perk so we can use the money to focus on the things that are necessities that the government does, like roads and things like that.
Exactly. And I don't think that, from a conservative standpoint, that the change that we would like to see is going to come as a result, it's going to come about without any, sacrifice on any level, from a state standpoint, community standpoint, and individual standpoint. I think that it's kind of human nature when, a lot of people say, well, I don't mind sacrificing, but I don't want to be the first one that jumps off the bridge. I'll go last. And it's difficult. It's difficult for people to swallow, I think, a lot of times when, somebody in my position or another a politician comes along and says, you need to sacrifice. And people, they kind of look at you and think, I just read in the paper this morning or saw in the news last night about another group of politicians getting caught with their hands in the cookie jar. I'm working 2 jobs. And the guy would come and tell me that I need to do what's less, or I need to sacrifice. So, inherently, it's what
Hang on, Scott.
In government.
Yeah, we kind of lost you there a little bit. But what I think you said was, we're sitting here talking about sacrifice, and yet you got somebody working 2 jobs, doing right by their family, making ends meet, and yet they read, about this politician that got their hand caught in a cookie jar, taking kickbacks or whatever the case may be, and it's like, well, so why would I not want to? Why would I want to do with less?
Who are you to tell me about? Who are you to tell me that I need to make sacrifices?
Yeah,
and I understand that frustration, and it bothers me when I see elected officials abusing their position, because it reflects upon us, everybody that serves an elected office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's a position in which actually citizens put a lot of trust into people that serve an elective office, and we need to be good stewards of that for reasons like this, so we can have intellectually honest conversations with people about the workings of government. And it's important to me that when I visit with my constituents here in District 17, from Mountain Home over to Harrison, and that I don't always expect they're going to agree with me, but at a bottom line, I expect to be able to look them in their eyes and to tell them this is where I was on this issue, or this is why I voted the way that I did, and I did not do it for my own personal gain or benefit, be it financially or politically or any other reason. That I did what I thought was the right thing or the closest to it. And you might disagree with that, but it certainly wasn't for my own self-serving interest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important thing for me to do in my position, and it makes serving in office actually a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, again, we're talking with Senator Scott Flippo. I'm sitting here thinking how this, I guess, there's anytime you start talking about a tax increase or, the government needing more money, and let's say the people kind of rise up and they say, we don't want any more, then it's like, okay, well then.
He puts the Paul in politics. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and we're back. Welcome back. 870-275-9799. That is the telephone number. People are kind of losing their minds at the idea of this Senate bill and what it's going to do to Arkansas works. Don't think that the Republican establishment aren't among them, because they are. Now, there are some Republicans in Arkansas that know this is the right thing to do. They know this was a mess from the to begin with. There's a few times. I just want to make the point. I want to make an observation. The Republican leadership in Arkansas back in 2013 could have sat on their hands and done nothing, and we would be better off for it. We would not have 3,000 able-to-work adults on a welfare program. 300,000. So often, these Republicans, it is important for you to understand, they campaign on limited government. They campaign on a Republican Party platform. They campaign on lower taxes. They even campaign on shrinking the size of government. And many times, all they have to do is nothing, and that will occur. I'll give you an example. The internet sales tax. This is a quest of governments all across the state and in Little Rock to get more money. People want more money. They're clamoring for it. They don't want to have to make tough choices. They don't want to have to govern. They don't want to have to go to their citizens and say, this is no longer a priority. I know people, there are some, that like this service of government or that service of government, but it's not an essential service of government. So we're maybe not going to have a water park. Maybe we're not going to spend $3 million on a community center. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we're not going to do those things. And even me saying that now makes people so nervous. But my point is, if you sit on your hands and do nothing, you see, the only way to stop government from growing is to limit its funding source. The only way to keep government from growing, and in some cases shrinking, or to enable it to shrink, is to limit the tax tributaries that fund this massive government river. Okay? It actually goes the other way. Yeah, you've got these are tributaries that feed the river and the tributaries. It goes both ways, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. So you get the point, right? And the internet sales tax is just a method to create a new vacuum, right? It's a new way to suck up funding. It's very important. And all they have to do, all these limited government Republicans, conservatives that campaign a certain way, all they have to do is nothing. And governments are going to have to make choices that they should have made a long time ago. Think about that for a second. Now, for somebody like a state representative, Charlie Collins, he don't want to hear that. No. He, as well as other people in leadership, they want the government to have more money. They think it's entitled. And if you disagree with them, then you're a tax cheat because you're not paying the use tax. Listen, you should pay the use tax. More importantly, the government should collect the use tax. But as far as an unconstitutional, new, out-of-state sales tax, we shouldn't be in the business of that just because big box stores say they got to have it to survive. So, hang on a second. Let me reset here for a moment, okay? Before I get into because we're running out of time here, and I need you to take a number down for me. All conservatives everywhere, I'm going to need you to help us out. So, we got this bill here. This article: thousands in Arkansas face insurance loss. And in the actual Gazette, if you were reading it, there was an article or an advertisement that came right by that article, and it said, "Vote against Trump Care," and it was to Senators Cotton and Bozeman, "Vote against Trump Care. The secret bill is bad for Arkansas if it strips health care from 23 million, including 200,000 Arkansans." I think that number's close to 300,000. "Gives massive tax cuts to the top 1%, weakens or eliminates pre-existing conditions, eliminates requirements for basic benefits like maternity, pediatric, and mental health care." Now, this is from an ad that wants you men out there to have maternity care, When you are, in fact, paternal, they want you to be maternally covered. And it says some other things, right? And it even calls out Representative Womack's vote. I think this is the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette, okay? "We will remember your vote." Blah, 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 blah. Okay, now, first of all, here's the thing. We just established by talking with Mr. Castor that the Senate plan is not really a repeal. I want to encourage you today, okay? I want to encourage you to contact Senator Tom Cotton and Senator John Bozeman and encourage them to repeal Obamacare. It's quite simple. I mean, if we're going to have these advertisements like this, "Vote against Trump Care," and they're calling out Senator Cotton and Senator Bozeman. These are people who have campaigned on being against Obamacare. Then I would just say, hey, as a conservative audience that's listening to this program that believes in limited government, you just give them a friendly phone call and tell them you support them, and say, hey, I just want you to know the people of Arkansas are sick of not being able to afford insurance. We're sick of working to make ends meet only to pay more so that they can give it away to somebody else for free. We're tired of the individual mandate. So, for example, on the screen here at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, YouTube, we have Tom Cotton's Washington, D.C. number, 202-224-2353. That's 202-224-2353. I'm going to say it slower, okay? Because it's in D.C. right now. It's 441. So that's 540. It's 541 right now in D.C. But just take it down and give them a friendly ring tomorrow, and just be congenial and say, hey, I just want to encourage Senator Cotton. We're against Obamacare in Arkansas, and to please get this right, and also, to speak up. I mean, the liberals are so freaking out. They're calling what is a bad Senate bill. They're saying it's going to be a disaster. 202-224-2353. Now, and we've got Senator Bozeman's number up as well. For those of you watching, yeah, there it is. 202-224-4. I can't see. What is that? Is that 4843? 202-224-4843. And the reason I feel the need to do this is because I saw that ad, and I'm just like, good grief, guys. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, we're in our own state of Arkansas where people are against Obamacare, and we're sick of it. And yet you have these ridiculous fearmongers that are saying, no, we're going to remember your vote. Well, no, the people of Arkansas, we know what we've sent there. I mean, okay, ask ourselves, did the people really, let's just take Arkansas, did they really send people to Washington, D.C. to repeal Obamacare? Is that what you voted for? I don't have an ounce of doubt that the answer is yes. You were sent to Washington, D.C. to repeal Obamacare. It may be inconvenient now. It may be something that, obviously, the special interests, they hate it, right? They hate it. They're terrified of it. But the answer is, yeah, that's what you guys were sent there to do. It's a big issue. It's one of the biggest domestic issues in the 21st century so far, is this radical transformation and takeover of 1/6 of the American economy. It cost us a ton of jobs. It's cost us a ton of health care policies. It's cost us a ton of money. We've had broken promise after broken promise. And so, yeah, I say give Tom Cotton and give John Bozeman a phone call and just encourage them to get this right and do the right thing and say, you know what? We don't want the individual mandate. We don't want penalties. We don't want higher premiums. And I'll just make a prediction and say, if they can't do something to lower premiums, it's going to be a huge failure that has consequences, that has political consequences. I mean, because the bottom line is this. If everybody that I was talking to somebody this morning who was before Obamacare, insurance cost $400 a month. Now it costs $800 a month, okay? If you take that person who's paying $800 a month now, and gosh, if you just lower that $200 a month, if you can do something to get that down, do you know? First of all, you know how many people who are kind of on the fence or maybe even lean Democrat are gonna be like, yeah, boy, I'm really glad they got that one right? But what is the goal? What is the goal? Is the goal to get as many people as we possibly can dependent on the government for their health care? Who is Mitch McConnell listening to? Well, Mitch McConnell's listening to this guy. You know, he's been in the insurance business for this many years. He's really trustworthy. Okay, who is that guy listening to? Because, see, I have this distinct feeling that there's something else going on. As a matter of fact, we know there's something else going on here. We know there is a domestic social engineering policy at play that Obama, you can call this Obamacare all you want. This is so much bigger than Barack Obama. This is so much bigger than Barack Obama. This is about getting a majority of people addicted, dependent on the government for their health care needs. And if the Senate Republicans get this wrong, single-payer health care is on the way. You let 300,000 Arkansans just milk the government for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years till 2024, the program is never going to go away. You don't think the insurance companies know that? You don't think the insurance companies are already making their pitches in 2020 or 2019 or 2021? We're like, well, this is how many people. Are you really, Senator, going to allow this many people to go off this plan? They know exactly what's going on. They know that emotion trumps logic every time now, because most people don't think critically, because our education system is teaching people to only take the emotional or moral argument instead of the logical, critical thought argument. It's as simple as this. You want to know why? And this is why the Republicans got to get their act together. You want to know why you're paying so much? It's so simple. You know why you're paying double, or in some cases 200% more in your health care premiums after Obamacare is before? Here's the answer. If everyone gets free health care, someone has to pay for it. And it's not going to get cheaper unless they quit giving free stuff. That's all you need to know. It's not going to get any cheaper unless they stop giving away free stuff. Because if everybody gets free health care, someone has to pay for it. It's not really free, is what I'm telling you. So unless Congress, and I don't really believe they have the spine. I mean, come on. Our own governor, Asa Hutchinson, who is supposed to represent us, supposed to represent our feelings, he is, I promise you, has been in contact, if he's not in contact right now, begging for money so they keep this program, this welfare program, going as long as it possibly can go. He doesn't want to make the tough decisions. He doesn't want to have to defend this. I mean, we're so misrepresented here. Congress doesn't have the spine to say, well, you know what? People are going to have to not get something for free if we want everyone else's cost to go down. And that's what the real battle is. They don't want to say you're not entitled to something that you don't pay for. Richard Castor said it best. It is now a commonplace fact. It is now commonplace. If you're sicker than a healthy person, you shouldn't have to pay more. Well, I mean, he raised a great point. Well, how offensive is it to say, well, you know, you have a healthy person who doesn't have to pay as much for health insurance, and you have a sicker person who has to pay more because they're sicker, and that's unfortunate. I mean, we can all agree that's bad, that's awful, but that is their situation. It's going to be more expensive, so they should have to pay for it, right? Let me give you an example of how bad Obama. So our whiteboard today, I mean, it's very simple. Look at our whiteboard. Repeal Obamacare now. Repeal Obamacare now. Not tomorrow. Not in 2024. Not in 2075. Repeal Obamacare now. This is something I have been following for a while. It's the biggest domestic issue. They predicated this whole thing on you having to buy a product the government has pre-approved. It's the most fascistic thing that has happened in your lifetime. The individual mandate is an abomination to the Constitution of the United States of America because they have put a price on human life. It fluctuates. But it completely redefines citizen and government, the relationship between American citizens and their government, and our government, I should say. Because if they can tell you that you have to buy health insurance, if you want to be in good standing, you have to pay tribute, they can tell you that you need to eat broccoli and bacon. Well, they're not going to say bacon, but you get the point. I mean, I'm sure if you give the right political, in that totalitarian society, if you give the right political donations, the government will tell you, you need to drink a 6-pack of beer a day. I'm sure that's going to be somebody somewhere at some point if we keep going down this path, right? But I have this little montage that's Town Hall Media. And first of all, I want to, So if we can get this montage over here, that one there. These are just broken promises of Obamacare by President Obama. I want to reiterate. I want to bring back these memories of what you've all experienced, paying higher and higher insurance premiums. Take a listen.
The product is good. The health insurance that's being provided is good. It's high quality. And it's affordable.
A broken website and now cancellation notices from insurance companies, followed by sticker shock over higher prices for the new plans. It's directly at odds with repeated assurances from the president.
You've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan.
Yeah,
because
he
of
messed that up
Obamacare,
like
they are not being able to keep
times.
it. To me, that is a lie.
I don't have my insurance company that I love. I do not have the medical policy, the health policy that I love and trust. And now, if I go on a health exchange, I have to choose between my doctors.
You like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Did he not say that, sir? He didn't say you can have unlimited choice. It's a simple yes or no question. Did he say if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor? Yes, but look, if you want to pay more for an insurance company that covers your doctor, you can do that.
And those who've already had a chance to enroll are thrilled with the result.
A Washington state mom hailed as an Obamacare success story by the president in a speech just last month. Well, now she says she can't afford the insurance and blames the state health care exchanges.
You can see it in her face and hear it in her voice, the disappointment Liz Benz felt when after 2 months of trying, she was finally able to compare health insurance plans on the government website healthcare.gov.
That never worked.
I can't afford it. I cannot afford it.
And it's affordable.
This is the first time in 10 years that Mayo Clinic is changing its health care options for employees. And the increase in costs is upsetting many employees.
The basic structure of that law is working.
Administrators at Seattle Children's today said they predicted this would happen, and it's even worse than they expected.
She has been told she does not qualify, and the private plan options are still too expensive. So she continues to go without health insurance.
I don't remember saying that everybody in the country would have a lower premium. Everybody will have lower rates.
Jeff and Dave used to have a $1,250 deductible. Since Obamacare went into effect, it's now jumped 60% to $2,000. That's nothing compared to Brian, Christy, and Judy, who have kids. They're going to pay twice that, $4,000.
All right, observation. These are news reports. Some of them national, some of them cable news, some of them, most of them, I believe, are local affiliates, like local broadcasts. Can you imagine how easy of a job? This is an observation. I know I'm living in fairy tale land, but I can't help but say, can you imagine if the media had spent as much time on Obamacare and its failures and the suffering of the American people as it did on Russia, a non-story? My point is, if the media was actually speaking truth to power, wasn't corporately controlled the way it is with an agenda, and I believe that agenda conforms with this idea of trying to get as many people dependent on the government for their health care needs as they possibly can. If they had done their job, you know how much political cover the Republicans would have right now to actually get in there and fix this the right way? But I don't know. It's like whoever Mitch McConnell is listening to and the special interests, I don't know, maybe they all have the same goals, which is to ignore the broken promises that the government makes, ignore the fact that this is now a disaster because the government caused it by interfering, and let's get onto a single-payer system, because that is what we're headed. And Republicans have an opportunity, and if they miss it, folks, it's going to make things so much worse. We got to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program.
Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody.
All right, welcome back. We've got some folks are saying, let's see here, because I was telling you guys, hey, reach out to Senator Bozeman, Senator Cotton, just encourage them to get this healthcare thing right. And more importantly, in response to some of that the newspaper ad that I saw that was like, we're going to remember your vote for Trump care. Okay, give me a break, guys. Give me a break. You're running that ad in Arkansas, okay? I just think it's outrageous. If these liberals are going to start this kind of stuff, we as limited government conservatives, we should be we should have no problem picking up the phone, sending an email or anything, So you could, there's different offices for your, around the state for Senator Bozeman or Senator Cotton. Just do whatever. I mean, you guys could look it up. I was just trying to encourage you guys as much as I can to just send them a nice note, and say, hey, we're on the side of repealing Obamacare. That's the side that we're on. And we just want you guys to know that you campaigned on this. You think this is disastrous for our economy. We know it's a tough decision, and I would say that it is. I mean, it's not a tough decision to do what you told the people, but everybody that they're meeting and talking with in the special interest is telling them not to do what they were sent there to do. You need to realize that. You need to let them know that you do realize that, and just say, hey, we're just behind you. We're behind you, because I just got a feeling that they need some encouragement. That's all. All right, folks, we got one more hour of the Paul Harrell program coming your way next. It is Monday. Happy Monday. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
You're going to have to do without this, and then you're going to have to do without that, and you're going to have to do without this. And they always pick the most valuable things that government does, and they ignore all these little things. And I wonder if conservatives, because that's just dawning on me, Scott, have ever thought the fact that a state like Arkansas, okay, is sending money to the federal government, and they're sending more money back to us than we send to them, how that actually enables government to grow. And if the federal government was keeping a tab, I mean, we would be in a lot of debt. I mean, thankfully they're not, but and then all of a sudden, you come accustomed to a certain standard of living, a certain standard of what you think government is supposed to do. And so in the long run, if we're really talking about limited government, the situation, the status quo is enabling the problem. Would you agree with that?
I would, absolutely. And I think that, government is not just about, having individuals that become addicted to government. It's you have states that become addicted to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just about an individual, that could become, feeling entitled to a handout. It could be a state that feels entitled to this funding, this spending. And, those are things that I think that certainly Republicans need to be looking at, that we need to be addressing. And I don't expect that we're going to do, to get the ship to do a 180 tomorrow. But what I think is it's always a good time to begin the conversation. And when you, when you run for office, one of the things that people nationally when they run for office say, vote for me and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do A, B, and C things. And if Republicans say that we're going to create jobs and we're going to lower taxes, and I always kind of I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I enjoy creating jobs. But that's predicated off demand with my business. I have an assisted living, so if people don't want to come and live there, it's going to be difficult for me to create jobs. I think that the biggest job creators are the entrepreneurs, the business owners, the citizens. What government can do is try to help with the framework. We can help with infrastructure. We can work with tax policy. But it really comes to creating jobs. Government's about as responsible for some of those jobs as storks are for babies. I look at my business, and, I think over the 14 years that I've been in business, I don't know that I would give too much credit to government for any jobs that I've created or any growth that I've had in my business.
Yeah, exactly.
I give the majority of that to my coworkers.
Mm-hmm. I just have a text message here. I've got a couple of them. Somebody writes, why do you think Puerto Rico wants to become a state? And just off the top of my head, I mean, you look at Puerto Rico, the bond trouble they got into, they want to become a state so that they can receive more than they produce. I mean, I think that's what this listener that just texted me is getting at. I mean, It's a problem.
And again, it doesn't make your life easier in the short term. Yes. And that's the problem. That's what I think the Republican Party are, that's what we need to be fighting, is it's not about, immediate gratification. It's about long-term solutions. And if you think that government is going to solve the problem, it's been my experience, and I, kind of look at the arc of history and say that, certainly there have been problems and challenges that government has been able to address and solve, if not solve, and, make a big dent in. But there's been so many things that we've not come anywhere close to solving. If anything, we've just kind of it up and enabled it, and it's just kind of continued to grow and grow and grow. And I look and say there's this continual war on poverty, and I think, well, are we making any headway in that war?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It seems to me that there's just a growing number, and more and more people, and there are good people that are hard workers that fall on hard times, and are they're looking for a hand up and not a hand out, and I love that, and I appreciate that, and I'm happy to help people. But there's certainly people out there that they've got a roof over their head and a TV to watch and something in the refrigerator. They're not going to really aspire to go much past that.
Yeah.
And it's just something that it's not just entitlement programs. It's so many other things. And I think that's something that, as a Republican, that I want to, that I enjoy visiting about is Republicans, our credos kind of, got to be first responsibility. You're responsible for doing for you what you're able to do, and if you're disabled or any disability, that society will step in and work to help you out. But for those of us that are able to work, there's that expectation that you do that, and that you live within your means. And these are personal responsibilities and not government responsibilities. And if you look at the federal level and some of the kind of debacle that's going on with the repeal and the replace of the Obamacare, I think it's one of the things that when I campaigned against the private option that was very concerning to me was knowing that if you expand this entitlement program to this whole new demographic of people, which was able-bodied working-age adults, where traditionally Medicaid served children, the elderly, the disabled, and pregnant women. And then we expanded it to this whole new class of people. And that I knew that the longer that we had it, boy, the tougher it's going to be to get rid of, because once people kind of become used to having something, it's difficult to take it away. And I think that I see part of our party, trying to distance themselves from Obamacare and embrace it at the same time. And I kind of sit there and shake my head. I was like, well, how's that going to work?
Yeah, and it's worked out terribly so far.
Exactly. And I think that's a message that we need to be.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is hour number 2. My name is Paul. Thanks so much for being with us. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. We do appreciate you guys being with us. The number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Here is a text message from Robert listening on Carve out of Russellville. That's 101.3 KARV. Robert in Pope County writing, Paul, the U.S. Conference of Mayors was recently held to discuss actions to promote a climate change agenda in spite of our country pulling out of the Paris Accord. Do you think they want to increase taxes to support their climate change agenda? Let me see here. And then references Genesis 8:22 disputes this agenda. Do you have any information about which Arkansas municipalities are supporting this? I do not have any information specifically about which Arkansas municipalities are supporting this idea. I find it just urinating into the wind, if I could say Like that seems to be what these mayors, we're going to enforce the Paris Climate Accords anyway. No, you're not. No, you're not. I mean, that whole thing, I mean, if you go back and listen to Donald Trump's speech, it was one of the best speeches of his presidency because he articulated the need for America to be sovereign. And he articulated the fact that this was a terrible deal, that essentially we're going to basically be not capitalizing on the energy that we have in the ground to heat our homes and to cool our homes, to power our homes, and that none of the other countries are going to have to comply with this type of stuff. And essentially what that would end up doing is redistribute wealth, give a bunch of money away to countries that are deemed that really and truly other people have deemed that we've taken advantage of, and so therefore we owe them all of these things. Even though America is one of the most generous countries in the world, American capitalism has raised more people out of poverty than any system ever. And so, I mean, those are just the facts. And anyway, but are these mayors, back to the mayors, so where are they going to get the money? I mean, they're going to participate in the Paris Climate Accords? All right, what are they going to? They're going to write a check? They're going to write a check to these countries? I mean, they're going to have I guess in their city budgets a line item to be like, well, this is for the Paris. But listen, it would bankrupt your city if you were actually to give the proportion that the United States economy was going to sacrifice so that these countries, somebody could level the playing field because, and it all goes back to, it's part of it, not all of it, but part of it goes back to this idea of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism, not a bad thing if I'm like, hey, I appreciate cultures. Somebody dropped some tamales off to me. The delicious tamales are some of my favorite. And you can very rarely find people that can make them right, but it's just amazing tamales. So I feel like I'm appreciating Mexican cuisine. It's pretty good. I like I don't want to stick on the food part because there's more to cultures than just food. But hear me out though, right? There's some cultures with bad ideas. Some cultures have had ideas that don't work. And just because they've gone through or maybe try to implement ideas that are bad and don't work, I don't know if that really means that all of a sudden we should quit and give up on our good ideas like, I don't know, American ingenuity, individualism, small business ownership, things like that, I mean, if we're better at other things, I mean, imagine in the Olympics, if someone suggested that Usain Bolt should maybe you shouldn't run as hard so the other guys will feel better about their times. I mean, that's what the Paris Climate Agreement was basically do. Well, you guys kind of lucked out with your energy and the coal and how easy it is to get to and everything else. And plus, you guys are hard workers and everything else. And maybe you guys should just work a little less hard. Instead, let's put these onerous regulations on you to where you're not going to be able to have a coal plant. Obama said himself, if you want to have a coal plant, that's fine. You can do it, but it will bankrupt you because of the regulations we're going to put on you. It is in that spirit that the Paris Climate Accords were reached. As far as these mayors doing it, I wouldn't worry. I think it's all show. Again, it is urinating into the wind. It's, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to do much. Phone number, 870-275-9799. Cell phone just collapsed on me. My fault. So we have an article over here, conduitforaction.org. Let me check this out here. So you've heard about the highway funds. And we're in a crisis, supposedly, right? Because they didn't get the tax money that they wanted out of us here in Arkansas. And this is an interesting one. Because conduitforaction.org got a new post. By the way, go over to subscribe to their updates. Subscribe to receive new posts. It's easy. Just put your email address in and hit subscribe over at conduitforaction.org. Headline, Highway Commission alerts drivers. Right? Highway Commission alerts drivers to hazards of over 50 highway projects while pushing higher taxes for more construction. I just got a text message. Hang on one second. This is a good one. Somebody writes, cultural appropriation, stop eating the tamales now. Well, if you've looked at my waistline, that is something I should certainly do. But there are people that would say that I'm appropriating the culture. How am I going to wear sombrero on Cinco de Mayo? That's appropriating. Well, what's the difference between wearing a sombrero, me being a white man, right, Me being a white man of Western European descent. What's the difference between that and me eating the tamales and enjoying them and saying that they're delicious? Am I not appropriating Mexican culture? I don't know, maybe. Somebody correcting me. Somebody says that the phrase, David writes, says that the phrase is not urinating in the wind. That's not the correct phrase. That is that I'm the first word is wrong. I don't know. I'm trying to be nice. But you get the point, right? And on that, by the way, new glossary term, new Paul Harrell program glossary term. You can no longer use the word redneck. That is wrong. You need to use the phrase neck of color. That is the appropriate term for being, if you call yourself a redneck. So Jeff Foxworthy jokes would be, you might be neck of color if fill in the blank. All right. Back to this highway article. My apologies. This is actually really, really good because they got to have all this money. Listen to this. Did you see the recent article saying there are more than 50 highway construction sites in Arkansas? Meanwhile, the State Highway Commission, Governor Asa Hutchinson, and his allies in the legislature want to raise gasoline and diesel taxes because they say there isn't enough money for highway projects. The article appeared in many local newspapers as an update from the Arkansas House of Representatives or from your local state representative. Some representatives posted the article on their Facebook pages. The article begins this way. There are currently more than 50 highway construction projects taking place statewide. Work zones can be found in every corner of the state. Highway work zones can be potentially dangerous for motorists who drive through the complex array of signs, barrels, and lane changes, and for workers who build and maintain our streets, bridges, and highways. This is why we want to direct your attention to a website and app that could help you find alternative routes this summer. The Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department is constantly updating iDriveArkansas.com. You can also find the iDrive Arkansas app in the App Store for your smartphone. Back to Conduit for Action. They write, when you look at the main page of the Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department, the first thing you will see is a long list of alerts to drivers about highway construction projects across the state. To supplement the information, they have iDrive Arkansas website and app to help drivers with the many construction projects. Look at the iDrive Arkansas map of highway construction projects. You see it there? Those of you watching at paulharrell.com, you see that thing? No wonder they think you need an app for your smartphone to try to avoid the construction zones. Folks, it looks like someone has taken a map of Arkansas and shot it with a 12-gauge shotgun. Like, that's what it looks like. I mean, there's construction zones everywhere. It does look like a BB pattern. Like, it looks like a shotgun spray right there. That's ridiculous. And so it goes on. Look at the map again. Ask yourself these questions. How many more road projects should Arkansas taxpayers be paying for at one time? Boy, that's a question they don't want. That's a question that's too far, Paul. That's too far. You hate our roads. You must hate our roads. You must want, you're confirming what Dan Douglas said is you must want people to die and so we'll take our highway funding seriously, bridges to collapse. It's just a simple question. Look at that map. How many more road projects should Arkansas taxpayers be paying for at one time? How much more should you be taxed for highways? That's the other question. You're already being taxed for highways, and this is what they're doing. I mean, that's a lot of projects. Not to mention, I mean, go back in 2012, we voted for a bond issue to raise money. Many people don't remember this. But in 2012, we basically, as a result of that, we double our highway road spending from 2013 to 2015. How much more do we need? They say we don't have enough. Now think about that. They say we don't have enough. Look at this map. That's crazy. Of course now we are spending $100 million this year in our share with Obamacare, but I guess $100 million could go to roads if we weren't spending it on able to work adults to have free health care. But that's a whole nother story. We covered that last hour. By the way, the whiteboard this week says repeal Obamacare now. We did a whole hour on that. Goes on, the governor and many legislators wanted to put on the ballot an issue to approve the issuance of highway bonds, but their plan was to deceive voters by not telling voters a vote for would trigger an automatic increase in gasoline and diesel fuel taxes. The bill, HB 1726, was part of a two-bill plan to increase taxes by $217.2 million. The bill received more than a majority vote in the State House of Representatives, but failed because the bill required a two-thirds vote to go on the ballot. State Highway Commission is still trying to get higher taxes on the ballot and is trying to drum up support for a ballot initiative, meaning you go around and get petitions. Oh, by the way, hey, check this out. If they do that, and they actually get the ballot proposal, and you're going into a gas station, or whatever, and like, oh, excuse me, sir, will you sign it? I'm telling you, I want the PHP listeners out there, I want you to feel free to record your conversations, to video your conversations and send them to us. I will put this on the air, and feel free to be nice. Don't feel free to be nice. Be very nice, but just ask them. I want to know how honest they're being. I want to know if the people that are going to be paid to get the signatures, do they know that it's actually going to create a tax increase? I want you to film it everywhere. I want you to send me the audio. We'll do segments on it. We'll play the audio. I'm sure we're going to do some man-on-the-street stuff as well because, quite frankly, it's too good to pass up. And I know some of these guys are just out trying to make a buck to get some signatures. But, I don't really care about that if the practical effect is that they're deceiving the voters of Arkansas into voting for a tax increase or even signing a petition to get it on. And, what they say is, come on, man, it's just to get it on the ballot. It's just to get it on the ballot, man. Like, that's what they say. I've heard them say that before. Man, just come on. I need it's just to put it on the ballot, so let people decide. It's just that. And it's just, I don't know, pretty obvious. Why would I sign that if there's a 100% chance I get what I want if it doesn't go on the ballot, like higher taxes? State Highway Commission is still trying to get higher taxes on the ballot. State Highway Commission is sending mixed messages. On the one hand, they want you to know there are so many highway construction projects that you should use their app or website to help you avoid construction zones. On the other hand, Highway Commission, the governor, Asa Hutchinson, and many legislators are in a hurry to get more of your money in the form of taxes to build more highways. Did your state representative vote for the plan that would raise taxes? Go to Conduit for Action right now, click on this article, and you have a link to the last official vote in the House of Representatives on HB 1726, and you can decide for yourself. Or you can know for yourself, how did my state representative vote on a deceptive bill that would have lied to you on the ballot? It would have said, nowhere in there, that your gas taxes would go up if you voted for it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, it's just, I think we were all raised to believe that is a lie. 870-275-9799. We're going to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program. Back in a moment.
Protecting your business means protecting your data. But is your business really prepared to handle the growing threat of things like cybercriminals and ransomware? At iTex, they're committed to deploying the best security solutions to protect your business and your bottom line. Security threats are constantly evolving. So are security needs. Be proactive now and equip your business with the best cybersecurity available with iTex. Call them today for a free consultation at 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com. You've probably thought about getting your real estate license, but you keep putting it off. Don't put it off any longer. The Northeast Arkansas Real Estate School makes learning the business easy with enthusiastic, interactive, real-world situations, and you can do it all with only 6 days of class. Go to neaprofessionalschools.com and register for the next class. Financing is available. They'll travel anywhere in Arkansas to teach you everything you need to know to become a licensed real estate agent. Or you can take the class online at your own pace. That's neaprofessionalschools.com. 870-336-4155. Mention the Paul Harrell Program and get 10% off. Don't put it off any longer. neaprofessionalschools.com.
This is Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment. Government is not the author or source of our rights. And you don't make America great again by giving one man in Washington all the power. You make America great again by recovering a constitutional republic where Washington is populated by people who are servant leaders who want to return power to the people and communities. Because what makes America great again in this country are its Rotary clubs, small businesses, churches, schools, fire departments, and little leagues across this land. God bless the people who hear this truth. Senator Ben Sasse.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to TripleRPawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's TripleRPawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, TripleRPawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The Paul Harrell Program.
870-275-9799 is the telephone number if you want to call us or text us today. That's 870-275-9799. Who do we have here? Give us your name and your county, please, when you text. And feel free to tell us how you're listening. You're listening online, listening on your phone, listening via a terrestrial radio station. We would appreciate that. But I do have a random text, somebody saying, maybe you self-identify as a Mexican. Nobody can tell that you're not. Because I like tamales so much. And see, to fill you in, the claim was, I'm eating tamales, like tamales. We're talking about multiculturalism. And that's, to me, as far as it goes. Like, multiculturalism is, I mean, I'm not opposed to the good ideas of cultures. If it's a good idea. To me, a tamale is a really good idea. The corn texture is so good. Now, I've talked to people that don't like tamales because of the texture. It is precisely the texture and the flavor and the pork that I like tamales so much, right? It's a good idea from another culture. Then there are bad ideas, from other cultures that I don't think I would. I don't mind to say it's a bad idea, Like it's, or at least me personally, I would disagree with that. There was that Japanese. What was that? I'd say so. A bad idea of Japanese culture is that the way that like suicide is kind of okay in their culture. I don't have any problem saying, I think that's a bad idea. That's just me personally. Where you have the guy, they do the decapitation after the guy, stabs himself. But I'm willing to appreciate the cultures where I think, that's a good idea. I don't want to offend anybody. I really don't have no desire to offend anybody. But the other side of multiculturalism, what it really means, is doesn't mean what I just said. It really means, no, we have to act like all cultures are equal in their merit. Not that everybody is not a human, doesn't have human rights, and isn't endowed with something. No. Of course, we're talking about. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about treating people the same, and we're not talking about treating people with dignity, kindness, goodness. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this idea that we are supposed to our own detriment, which again goes back to the Paris Accord. That's how this whole thing started. to our detriment, we're supposed to lay off our really, really good ideas that are going to make it hard for the other guy to compete. Lay off those ideas so that they can get ahead. Now, if you're doing that, like, your best friend, like, hey, I've done a little bit better in life, and I want to give to you charitably, and I want to help you out. That's a different thing, right? But when we're saying, by law, we're going to conscript people with how productive they can be, so that other countries can get it, that's just completely ridiculous. And again, it goes to multiculturalism, and tamales are great. And I'm not appropriating Mexican culture by eating tamales. Although, don't tell the sombrero lady that, cussed out that white Western European inconsiderate man for wearing a sombrero on Cinco de Mayo. I mean, it was kind of, I didn't think about it. What would be the difference with him saying, oh, it's Cinco de Mayo, I'm going to go eat Mexican food today, versus, oh, it's Cinco de Mayo, I'm going to put a poncho on today? What's the difference there? If you're white in both situations. We got to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. Liberty Machine rolls on. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Very conscious of as a party that it's hard to kind of straddle the line on this, that government doesn't need to be in healthcare, but we need to make sure that that everybody's getting, that we're providing it for everybody. Well, how you're going to do that without having, increased government involvement?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then once you get into healthcare, the whole thing, it just perpetuates, and we get accustomed to a certain, relationship between citizen and government, and then, then of course, private sector gets squeezed even more. I mean, it's just a vicious cycle. Senator Scott Flippo, I appreciate you coming on, sir. Very good. I love it. Big picture conservatism. Really good conversation. I'd like to expand on it next time. Because this is stuff that I think the listening audience, I find it fascinating. So I really appreciate your thoughts on that.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate the opportunity to be on and visit with you all this afternoon, and look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.
All righty. All right, Senator Scott Flippo, everybody. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back, though, in just a minute. Don't go anywhere.
I-92.
The Paul Harrell Program.
You guys know who Rex Nelson is? Rex Nelson is a senior editor at the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Did he work in the government at all I thought he for a few years, or Rex Nelson, the senior editor at the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, I thought he had something to do with the government of some kind. I could be wrong on that. So he's got an editorial that is strikingly similar in tone to some of the stuff that I have said. There's an opium out there. There's a terrible epidemic of drug use down at the Capitol. It's called Marble Rock, and if you smoke it, you develop. The first symptom is hubris. It's just this blind ambition, and then you start really getting annoyed with basic questions from your elected official. From your constituents back to you. You kind of feel like. This is what the Marble Rock does. You smoke it and it hits your bloodstream, and immediately you feel superior. Once in your bloodstream, of course, if you know anything about the circulatory system of a human being, your blood goes throughout your entire body. So once it's in your bloodstream, eventually that blood is going to make its way. It's going to feed your brain oxygen. Well, that Marble Rock oxygenated blood in your brain will actually have the euphoric effect of making you think that you're smarter than you actually are. This is the drug Marble Rock. It's rampant down in Little Rock. It's why they call. It's why they named the city Little Rock, because of this naturally occurring substance down there that politicians, if they smoke it, they feel so good about themselves, and so we got to be careful about this. So when Rex Nelson from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, the senior editor there, his op-ed posted yesterday entitled "Legislative Crack." The name of his piece is Legislative Crack. It caught my attention. There was no discussion, he writes, no debate. It was done quickly, like swallowing medicine with a bitter aftertaste. On June 15th, Rex Nelson writes, the Executive Subcommittee the Arkansas Legislative Council approved a request from the Bureau of Legislative Research to hire outside counsel to work with federal investigators. Now, this topic, folks, is something that we talked extensively about. We're going to continue to do so. We have, on this program, we have mapped out the development of this story because, you see, if you compare what happened with indicted Senator John Woods at his pretrial hearing where he got an extension, a continuance to December 4th, you will remember that John Woods' counsel said, we want to wait until December 4th because the Federal Bureau of Investigation, they are investigating this, and there are more indictments to come. Essentially, we want to see how many other shoes there are to drop because maybe my thing would be maybe the deal, the options of a deal look differently the more legislators there are who've been pinched, okay? And then we had the news break 2 weeks ago that the Bureau of Legislative Research got approved the hiring of outside counsel to deal with FBI requests of legislator emails. FBI is real familiar with emails after the last 18 months, trust me. So Rex Nelson goes on. It's talked about only in whispers in the halls of the state capitol, but the bottom line is this. The scope is broadening in the ongoing investigation by the FBI and possibly other law enforcement agencies into legislative abuse of what's known as the General Improvement Fund. Let me stop there. This is echoing what we told you last week. We had the former head of the Bureau of Legislative Research, Mr. David Ferguson, on this program. And when David Ferguson dropped the knowledge that when he left the Bureau back in 2012, 2013, I think, I can't remember the exact date, It was the Bureau of Legislative Research that was responsible for maintaining the email server separate from other government networks between the BLR and legislators. And that is why I deduced that the scope is more broad, because the BLR doesn't have anything to do with general improvement funds. I mean, or very little. Like, hey, write me a bill saying that general improvement funds will pay for what I want to happen. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's it. There would be no, hey, launder this money so I can get a cut. So if they're looking for emails, they're not going to be looking for much in GIF. That's my speculation, right? They're looking now for something else. And in a criminal investigation, they're going to get those emails, in my opinion. The FBI is going to get the emails from the BLR. And so I just want to say, Rex Nelson, legislative crack, Marble Rock. Rex Nelson is also saying that the scope is broadened. We were telling you this last week because we had Mr. David Ferguson on, who really just dropped, I think, just a huge piece of information about, who maintains those servers. Rex Nelson writing this, quote, "This has the potential of becoming one of the biggest Arkansas news stories of late 2017 and early 2018. I will add this," he writes, "it's about time. A pox on those legislators who have abused the public trust and misused taxpayer funds." Then he goes on to recount John Woods, Micah Neal, their indictments. Micah Neal pled guilty. He goes on to recount much of what Conduit for Action recounts about GrabFest. We told you that last week about the 1997 legislative session. Rex Nelson writes, quote, "Prior to the 1997 legislative session, the system generally worked this way. Legislators routinely approved all bills that called for using GIF. There often would be 3 to 4 times as much spending approved as was actually in the account. The governor would decide what got funded. This provided political protection for legislators who could tell their constituents, I got your bill passed, the dang governor's the one who wouldn't fund it. It's his fault. But that changed in 97 because of Governor Mike Huckabee. They wanted to strip the Republican governor's powers, and so the Democrat legislature certainly did that. And then he mentions Senator Nick Wilson of Pocahontas, quote, who later would serve time in federal prison for crimes committed while in office, was among those leading the charge to take the fund away from the governor. Even so-called reform legislators were caught up in the feeding frenzy that spring. The final day of 1997 regular session was on a Saturday as the legislature came to override all of Huckabee's vetoes. Rex Nelson writing, I remember seeing 2 of those who later would be caught up in the Wilson affair, high-fiving in the Capitol parking lot that day. What they didn't understand is that they were making a martyr of Huckabee, who would be elected to full 4-year terms in 1998 and 2002. Once legislators became addicted to these funds, Rex Nelson writes, it proved impossible for them to break the habit. I worked in the governor's office in those days, and we referred to it as legislative crack. Legislators could fund pet projects and get their photos on the front pages of newspapers in their district as they handed out checks. The GIF soon became a slush fund in the truest sense of the word. Now, Rex Nelson is right here, and it's something we've talked about before. I'm glad to see this type of information and perspective be in the Democrat Gazette. I really am. Folks, I'm telling you, you go to the Conduit for Action has some great pieces on this. They've actually got it sourced and linked. You can take this general improvement money, and they actually have the photos of them in local newspapers. And a lot of times it happens during the Republican primary season. So the Republican has, or the politician has a primary in his own party. Or it happens in the general election. And a few weeks before early voting starts, maybe a week before early voting starts, all of a sudden, bam, front page of the Baxter Bulletin or what some other local newspaper. Politician incumbent A holding out, might as well be a Publishers Clearinghouse check to the Boys and Girls Club of America or the local firefighters of whatever, and there you go. I mean, and the media just, here you go, and they get credit for it. Look, I'm taking care of my community, and It's the power of incumbency given like steroid shots. A power of incumbency given steroid shots, and then you get to, you just coast to re-election. And you're using the public's money to do it. You're using the public's money plus a complicit lapdog media to grease the skids for you to stay in power. And it's unethical. So unethical. But it worked for years. Rex Nelson certainly been around the block to understand that. Then he gets to Mike Wilson. Mike Wilson is a former Democratic state representative from Jacksonville. Now, Mike Wilson has been on this program before to talk specifically about this. In 2005, Mike Wilson filed suit, back to Rex Nelson's piece, in state court in an attempt to abolish the General Improvement Fund. Wilson, a lawyer, said the GIF violated Amendment 14 to the Arkansas Constitution, which bans state-funded local legislation. A fiscal conservative who was appalled by some of the things of which taxpayer funds were being spent, Mike Wilson said at the time, quote, "It's bad business to give money away with no accountability." The case eventually went to the Arkansas Supreme Court, which ruled in Wilson's favor. But that didn't stop there, did it? It didn't stop there. Because after the Supreme Court ruled against their slush fund scheme, the legislature, came back and they tweaked the laws. And they said, you know what? Instead of the legislature directly giving this money back to their districts, we're going to create these Arkansas Planning and Development Districts, or Economic Planning and Development Districts. And the money is actually going to be given to them. And then the legislatures, they kind of like wink, wink, nod, nod. Hey, here's a list of candidates I think you should award this money to. And I don't know, they probably put one in bold, at the top there. And that's where it gets to. And then they give the legislator a call, said, "We here at the Independent Economic and Development Center of Central Arkansas have decided to give the money, and you can present the check to them on this date." And basically the same thing happened. They still get all of the credit. And it's a complete joke. Rex Nelson writes the same thing. Despite the ruling from the state's highest court, legislators were unable to get off the legislative crack. We might call it legislative opioids these days. House and Senate leaders devised a scheme in which the money was funneled to the state's 8 planning and development districts. Mike Wilson described it as a system in which money for local projects is dribbled out through the subterfuge of grants at the direction of individual legislators to their pet local uses, quietly and with no attention from the media. Each individual member is allocated a share of the GIF to spend as he or she fits. Let me get back to the media portion of this in a minute, but let me just say this. How did John Woods and Micah Neal think up their money laundering scheme? The government showed them how to do it. The culture of the Arkansas legislature showed them how to launder the money. Think about it. John Woods and Micah Neal took GIF money and gave it to Ecclesia College in Springdale. But Ecclesia College hired a consultant first that essentially was selling their consultant services to Ecclesia and selling access to the grant money that the legislator would give to Ecclesia. Then Ecclesia would pay the consulting firm for their services, and then the consulting firm would pay the legislator for the money. It was a money laundering scheme. It was a way, and it was illegal, thank goodness, but it was a way to make it appear legitimate, and they got caught. Well, what is the difference in that, aside from strict legal terms, or, legal realities? What is the difference in that and violating Amendment 14 of the Arkansas Constitution by allowing legislators to directly distribute taxpayer funds to their benefit? The Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that. So what do? Well, we'll pass a law, we'll tweak this law here, and we'll launder the money through economic planning and development districts, and then they'll give the money in a grant to my local project, and I'll show up and still get the credit for it, and I'm still basically doing it, but it's the same thing. John Woods and Micah Neal learned how to launder that money because the Arkansas legislative climate, their legislative culture, taught them that's what you do when you can't take the money directly. That's my interpretation of it. Now, Rex Nelson writes, as the senior editor of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, at the direction of individual legislators, they went around the highest court's ruling quietly and with no attention from the media. Now, when did this happen? I wasn't around in 2005. I wasn't around in 2007 doing a radio show, so I wasn't in the media. But I'm just saying, Rex Nelson, senior editor of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, is the media. I'm glad he's bringing attention to it now, but with no attention from the media, well, he is the media. Just making an observation there respectfully. I'm really glad he wrote this perspective. I'm really glad he wrote this. But if anything, I'm just saying I would agree with Rex Nelson that the media has done such a disservice to this state. And it's very simple why. If the statewide media and the TV networks really covered these guys with the scrutiny that journalists should cover any powerful entity, their access would get cut off. And there would not be as a friendly, congenial environment among the journalistic class and the, I mean, it'd be less of a show. There'd be less people pretending to be journalists, and there'd actually be conflict. I mean, I'll admit there's some conflict with what I do because I'm honest about my perspective of limited government. But this kind of stuff here is, you don't have to have a conservative or liberal bent to know that taxpayer money shouldn't be used to get reelected. You know what I'm saying? Or in this case, I mean, where did it lead to? Well, human beings permitted to do something that's not quite ethical. They'll take it a step further. That's our heart, right? That's all of us if we're honest about it. We'll take it even more further, and we'll go, and eventually you end up like Senator John Woods. I'm going to finish this Rex Nelson article before we go. He writes, the planning and development districts cover 6 to 12 counties each. They were established in 1967 to 68. So I was erroneous just a second ago when I said they created them in 2097. I'm sorry, no, in 2005. I was erroneous there. But they existed and they used them to accomplish their purposes. Winthrop Rockefeller was governor when that happened. A couple of years ago, the director of one such district with whom Rex Nelson writes, I had worked closely when I was with the Delta Regional Authority, called. She was in tears, having been berated by a state senator who was harassing her on almost a daily basis over what he called my money. Democrats, then in the majority, took control of GIF funds away from the governor in 97. 2 Republicans, whose party is now the majority party, find themselves indicted for alleged GIF missteps. Greed and stupidity know no political affiliation, and I think we'll learn that real soon. Lawmakers authorized $70 million for GIF projects in 2013 and $20 million in 2015. Scared by the indictments of their former colleagues, they authorized no money for GIF projects this year. It's too late, though, Rex Nelson writes. Years of addiction have resulted in a stench that emanates from the state capitol. If it takes the FBI, grand juries, and federal prosecutors to fumigate the place, so be it. A day of reckoning is coming. Again, Rex Nelson, senior editor at the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, with a perspective that I think is, I just want to say, man, it's good to hear that from the Gazette, that's at least somebody there knows the history of what's really going on. 870-275-9799. Call or text back in just a moment.
Order. In the name of public safety, order. This meeting of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards is called to order in the name of public safety. What's on the agenda for the day?
We have before us today, per our summons, a representative from the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing cosmetology, cosmetologist, and all things hair care and beauty.
Right. Of course, I remember this. In the name of public safety, ma'am, please state your name for the record, and thank you for appearing before us today.
Yes, my name is Cosmo Glamour Gazette, and I'm here in response to a letter our state board received claiming we're in violation of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards. In the letter, you claim that our licensing board is in violation of your rules and regulations because we have failed to, quote, pay tribute, end quote, and therefore have not been granted a license by the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing licensing boards to, quote, shake down the Arkansans who have an interest in cosmetology, end quote.
In the name of public safety, order. Yes, Miss Gazette, we sent you that letter because you have not obtained our approval in the form of a license from our board to distribute licenses to the professional class your board strives to protect. In the name of public safety, of course.
Of course.
So, in the name of public safety, and just so we can get this for the record, you do admit and agree with our board, the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards, that you have not obtained a license, thereby revealing your board of cosmetology to be operating outside our rules, regulations, and authority?
Well, sir, I'm not sure our board agrees that we need a license from your board to continue to shake down, to look out for the public safety of Arkansans.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
Well, it seems we are at a bit of an impasse if we are not in agreement that your board owes us tribute.
Sir, maybe we could ask and see if there's a bureaucrat in the house.
Oh, yes. Yes, that would shed some light on things. A bureaucrat. Yeah, in the name of public safety, is there a bureaucrat in the house? We need someone to resuscitate and confirm our authority as the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards.
Here.
Yes. Oh, good. Come to the end of the table in the name of public safety and state your name for the record, please.
Yes, I am Despot Ringleader, the head of the Bureau governing all state bureaus, and it is my testimony the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards does have the authority to demand tribute in this situation and will provide in exchange a license to say they can continue to operate in the name of public safety.
It's hard to argue when the public safety is put at risk. Very well. We will consider Mrs. Ringleader's testimony as truth, and we will pay tribute in the name of public safety, of course.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
He puts the Paul in politics. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, folks. Hey, thank you so much for being with us today. We do appreciate it. We're going to have more Arkansas politics headed your way tomorrow. We start at 4 o'clock. For those of you who don't get the entire program live, maybe, for example, our Mountain Talk 97 audience, you guys get the program from 5 to 7. But this 5 o'clock hour is live. So you guys have one more hour coming your way next from our 4 o'clock hour. You don't want to miss it. We had a good discussion about Obamacare, good discussion with Richard Castor, the chairman of the Baxter County Republicans. It was really good. Really, really good. But we start at 4 o'clock every day over at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live. If you could help us out, it would really help us out if you would like us on Facebook. Those of you listening on terrestrial radio, I know many of you have a Facebook, and you can go to facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. That's facebook.com/Paul Talk Show, and you can like us. And when you like us, be sure to subscribe to our notifications. So you want to go to the notification bar right next to the like button, and you want to just be notified when we go live. And then a lot of times trust me, it's very beneficial, because when we go live on Facebook, you'll get notified and you can watch us do the program. we would really appreciate that. This program is available for free at paulharrell.com. We're on iTunes Store, the Paul Harrell program. We're on SoundCloud, the PHP podcast. Check us out. Download it. It's free every day, so if you ever miss the program, it's there so you can get caught up. I personally love podcasts, and I know you will too. And if you're an iTunes person, if you're an Apple iOS, you subscribe to that iTunes podcast, the Paul Harrell program, and you get it for, it's just going to come to your phone every day because you subscribe to it. So we appreciate all of that. Folks, we can't do the program without you listening. We are building the Liberty Machine. You are getting information that you're not hearing anywhere else. We need your help. Please keep listening. Tell a friend. Arkansas, be safe.
CBS News Now. Mark Levin in minutes. This is FM News Talk 101.3 KBTM Jonesboro. It's 6 o'clock.